everyone. Tara just informed me that it is Wednesday. I don't even know what day of the week it is because my daughter's still not back in school. And yeah, there's like no organization going on in my household right now. So happy Wednesday. Okay, so Tara, we're not even 2 full weeks into 2024. And already we have an alien sighting slash psyop conspiracy in Miami. Lil Nas is exposing the satanic music industry, aka the Illuminati, supposedly. A plane door flies off while the plane is up in the sky flying, and a man goes haywire on a judge. So I don't know what's going on astrologically, but I would say 2024 is going to be wild. So buckle up, everyone. This is crazy.
Yeah, I thought with Mercury retrograde ending on January 1st that like things were going to calm down, but clearly that doesn't seem to be happening.
No, I think things are really revving up. I thought so too. I was like, oh good, retrograde's over. Yeah, no, this is just beginning. So we have to start out talking about what happened in Miami last week, and I'm just going to start with the official police response. So this was in a Forbes article where the Miami Police Department confirmed they responded to a call of shots fired at the Bayside Mall in Miami. They eventually concluded that it was just the sound of fireworks going off that was mistaken for shots fired. And NBC reported that 4 teens were arrested for assault in connection with a man who claimed that the teens threw a bottle at his car. And the teens face charges of burglary, grand theft, battery, and resisting an officer. All right, no big deal. Well, here's where the story gets weird. 75 police cars showed up to the mall. And there's video footage confirming like all of these cop cars everywhere, but yet no footage of the fighting or fireworks and no footage of anything that happened inside of the mall. And this is unlike anything I've ever seen. So I got to hear from you, like, as a police officer, is this normal? Like, have you ever seen 75 cop cars respond to an incident like this?
Okay, I'll preface it with this. Like, if it's a basic shots fired call, you don't normally get that type of response. But, like, if we're looking at it from the perspective of an active shooter scenario, which we know has been happening a lot lately throughout the world, like, I can definitely see how you would have this kind of massive police presence. Like, even here in the Czech Republic, there was an active shooter who killed 14 people and injured another 25 people at the university in Prague just a few days before Christmas. So this was around the holidays. And, I can see how there might be heightened police presence. And I know a lot of police departments, like I said, they're on high alert and they are starting to take shots fired calls more seriously, especially when you have multiple calls coming in. And that's what Miami PD is claiming that several people called in hearing gunshots. So it resulted in what they call a citywide 3 alert, which is when they require all of their active officers in the city to respond to the incident location. And I know this kind of thing is valid because I've responded to stuff like that myself. And this happened on New Year's Day, I think, right? So
Mhm.
it's possible that they had more units deployed than usual. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here with, the massive response, but it is still a pretty significant police presence for just a group of teenagers fighting.
Right. And here is where like all the rumors start coming in. Okay. So brace yourself because people have been reporting seeing 8 to 10 foot tall creatures or beings in the mall. They appeared to be interdimensional as they would appear and then go away and then reappear somewhere else. And witnesses supposedly say that they were like gliding instead of walking and they were this dark color. And although there are reports of these beings seeming like almost like they were lost, but not, harmful or threatening, obviously it freaked people out and chaos erupted as people ran for their lives, as well as some people supposedly shooting at the beings, but like the bullets having no effect on them. Now, this is all like hearsay rumors. Okay. So let's just have fun with this. Well, I found two videos that surfaced of men who were allegedly at the mall and say that they did, in fact, see these creatures. So let's go ahead and hear from them. Here's the first guy that I found.
So, my name is Nadik, and I was also at the mall when I saw the 10 feet alien. I'm gonna give you my testimony right now. So, what I saw, I was just standing in the side of the mall, and then I saw everybody running towards the center of the mall. As everybody's running towards the center of the mall, I went to try to take out my phone. But as soon as I got to my phone, I looked up and I see this 10 feet creature just like moving side to side. The images was like cutting in and out. It wasn't clear. He was fading in and out of like reality, I guess. And then three other ones appeared and they was fading in and out of reality too. It's like they wanted to be here, but it's like we had the power to see them, but we couldn't see them all the way. Like we needed to have, I don't know, or they needed to come all the way out. I don't know. But it was a little shaky. The cops came, it was like a million cops out there. It was nasty. And then they asked everybody for their phones right before we departed. So they made a perimeter around these aliens, and they was checking everybody's phones. But I got somebody with a picture and a video, and he's from Miami. He's a resident of Miami, and from Orlando, and he was at the mall too. So me and him became cool when he was running away. I was like, "Yeah, you got that?" He was like, "Yeah, I got that." So me and him are in contact, and he's just scared to release the video, I guess. But I'm gonna have the video because we cool.
So he's going to have the video because we cool. Okay, so there was another guy, and I'm just going to play a snippet because he did like a 10-minute video going into detail, and I'll repost the whole video on our TikTok, like if anyone wants to see the whole thing. But I'm just going to play like, it's actually a long snippet. It's like 4 minutes, but I had to include all this.
My name is Fitz. I was there at the Bayside Mall with my family, and we all saw exactly what happened. Um, don't like pay attention to a lot of the videos that are out there. I feel like a lot of people are trying to use this for clout. But what happened, we all saw what happened, and it's pretty serious. It's been a few days, but our whole family's processing it. But I think we've kind of like accepted that we were a part of this weird experience and moment. So basically, what happened was I was there with my brother Brian, my sister, and my nephew. We were looking for shoes for my nephew, and then we see a whole crowd of people outside the store, just running out in a direction. So as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh shit, what's going on? So we immediately ran out with our nephew, and we picked him up and we ran out and we followed the crowd. And then about like a few seconds later, as soon as we started running, my nephew, he's autistic, so he was pointing behind us and he was saying blanky, which he'll usually say whenever he feels unsafe or scared. And he was pointing behind us. So me and my brother, we look behind us, and then we see these 3, 9, 10 foot tall creatures. I'm not gonna say aliens. Everyone keeps saying it's aliens. I'm not saying aliens because I don't know what it was. None of us really knew. Everyone, all of us stopped in our track. We, a whole bunch of people were pointing at it. There were other people running. Um, there was a crowd. As soon as it made itself more apparent, um, it looked like it was glitching, not like a computer pixelation, but like a wavy glitch. And whatever maybe was covering them had, unveiled or whatever. Yeah, it looked like a glitch, man. It like a weird glitch in the Matrix or whatever. And then you could see it in its full form, all three of them. And then, they were all black. You saw eyes, and you could faintly see like lips. But yeah, I was about like 20 feet away, because obviously everybody gave it distance, right? And they're tall, so we all just like looked at them. They were just standing there, And the thing that was a little bit weird, well, it was clearly like observing us. It was sentient, right? Like, or whatever. I mean, I don't know. But it was aware of us. It looked at us, the whole crowd. And then as soon as it started walking with its big legs, like kind of like it started like almost glitching again, we all ran. My brother like immediately said, "Yo, let's go." He grabbed me by the shoulder. We bolted out of there. And for anyone that's like saying, you know, where's the footage? Where's the footage? Yeah, I know. I don't have any footage, and I'll explain why. Because like when I saw it, I was in complete fear. It was something that I completely froze, man. I don't care if I sound like a bitch about it. Like I froze, and I don't care who you are. I feel like when you're seeing something paranormal, it's different than when you're seeing a fight. Yeah, you'll probably want to record that and put it on World Star or whatever. When you see something paranormal, that's different because your reality, you can't comprehend what you're seeing. A fight, you kind of get it. Two people are fighting. You can comprehend that. Something like this, none of us could comprehend. Your first instinct is like, it ain't to like take out your phone and start recording. Your first instinct is like, I've never seen this before. What is this? Is it gonna hurt me or my family? That was my first number one priority. So if you don't believe me, I get it.
Okay, so he goes on like for a while. But you
Okay,
know, also go
I
ahead.
gotta say something. Listening to both of those, and I hadn't heard either one of them before. Notice they both said there were 3 aliens, so their stories were consistent, and they both described them as glitchy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And his like it just I don't know, it seemed very like genuine to me and like that does make sense. I mean, you saw something like that, like realistically, are you going to pause and take your phone out and record? No, you're going to like run for your life. Um and it dawned on me too, like I've seen a ton of videos. I don't know what country it is. I don't know if it's like in China or Japan or somewhere um in Asia where they have like this holographic technology that looks so realistic and they have stuff like that that's really freaky and like freaks people out that they do on buildings and stuff. So I mean it like there is technology that can create stuff like that. So I'm just going to throw that out there as well. Um but the other thing that is, again, it's a rumor, but people say that the airport was shut down and that all these planes were grounded and that a black op helicopter was sent out to the mall area, which I guess is a helicopter that's quiet. You can't hear it. It's blacked out. And so it can like cover an area without being detected, which would make sense as to why they would ground flights in the area. But I did see during like when all this was going down, I was on TikTok and I did see people, there's these like guys that I follow. I don't know if they're pilots or what, but they have some kind of computer website or something where they can track flights like everywhere. And they were pointing out, like, oh my God, all these flights are grounded in Florida. Like, what is going on? Yet no news articles talk about this. I couldn't find anything official on this. And here's what's crazy. There are videos online that are super low resolution, very blurry, very hard to see, but it does appear that there's some large being walking outside the mall in front of the cop cars. So the initial response was like, oh my gosh, this is just CGI. It's just an AI, deep fake video. Well, then when I was researching for this episode, I found this Forbes article that says, quote, the scenes from the supposed appearance of the alien match up with news coverage and video footage that covered a New Year's Day brawl at the mall. And then this same article goes on to like explain what everyone thinks is an alien by saying, quote, a clearer video that closely matches the alleged alien clip actually appears to be 2 to 3 people, likely police officers, walking together between the squad cars and the area near the mall. But then we have other articles like this one from TMZ that says, quote, spokesperson for Miami PD tells TMZ what is seen on this clip is the shadow of someone walking. You look at the bottom of the shadow, you can see the person, no creature, end quote. So which is it? Like the people that aren't getting their stories straight are the media and the police. Like, is it one person? Is it two? Is it 2 cops? Is it a shadow? And like, if they have a clearer video, why aren't they posting that to like dispel all these rumors? And like, this is the thing that makes these conspiracy theories go wild. The story keeps changing. And like, first, the story was people saw beings in the mall and they shot at the beings out of fear. Then it was like, oh, it wasn't shots, but it was just fireworks. And it wasn't beings, it was just four teens in a fight. And like, then on top of that, the power allegedly went out in the mall and the surrounding area with thousands of homes allegedly losing power. And some say this could be why the flights were grounded. And like, some speculate that the police were the ones that cut the power to the mall. And then others say that no, it was like these interdimensional beings and like they were causing, all these glitches with the electronics. And then another thing that's super weird is that there is zero video footage from people at the mall, like people in the mall. The only video is from what appears to be across the mall that must have been like up in a high rise, which is why the resolution was so low because they had to like completely zoom in to see this like creature or whatever. Um, but you don't see any video from like the police that were right in front of this supposed creature or the people at the mall. And so if it was just a shadow, release the video. And then like in today's world where everyone has phones and every single store and mall is loaded with security cameras, how is there no footage everywhere of this supposed teen brawl? Like, doesn't that seem a little suspicious? Like maybe the guy from the clip that I played was telling the truth, like about everyone's phones being confiscated by the police as they left.
Yeah, there's no way there wouldn't be some kind of camera or cell phone footage somewhere. And like you mentioned, the stores in the mall, they all have cameras, but so do the parking lots. And it's this is Miami. It's a big municipality. So I'm going to guess there's probably city cameras everywhere. And then what about like police body cam footage? I'm going to assume a big department like Miami has body cams, right? And honestly, I'd be curious to hear the 911 calls to see if anyone did call in reporting aliens or what people were reporting when they called in, because all 911 calls are recorded.
That is something I totally forgot to put in this episode. So, like one of the viral videos from outside the mall where all the cop cars were, you could hear in the background like the police talking on like the radio in the car, and you could hear them say creature, like the word
Really?
creature. And so
Wow.
that everyone's like, well, what was that about then? And again, it's like, if it's nothing, I don't understand why wouldn't they just release the body cam footage or the cop car footage or the mall footage just to show like, hey, this was just teens fighting. Like everyone needs to calm down. So it just like that part doesn't make sense to me at all. And then, all these witnesses were like going on social media saying that their phones were confiscated as they left the mall, like I said, and that like any footage that they did have was deleted or taken. And no news articles are talking about any of this. And I mean, not that I really trust news sources to cover the truth anyways. I mean, they're just kind of told what to print and what to, keep quiet on. But this is the craziest part of the whole conspiracy. This is where my conspiracy brain is like, what the heck is going on? So I came across these posts on TikTok that were saying if you take the coordinates of the Bayside Mall and reverse them and plug them into Google Earth, it's a location in Antarctica. So I did this because I'm like, I want to confirm like if this is true. It's fucking true. It is true. You reverse the coordinates, it takes you to Antarctica. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist or if you're on that side of TikTok, like you likely have already heard all the stories about Antarctica being this top secret place. Every country has an agreement to like never do anything but research there, no fighting there, no war, no nothing, which I think is odd. You have General Richard Byrd's journal that was found after he died and released by his son that said that there were these like alien type beings and some inner earth portal located in Antarctica. And I mean, we could do a whole separate episode. We could do a whole series on Antarctica. But the conspiracy is there, right? That like there's something weird going on in Antarctica. So, I mean, come on, like if you plug in the coordinates, like let's say there was such a thing as a portal and you plug the coordinates in the wrong order, you end up at the Bayside Mall instead of Antarctica. Like, I
Wow.
think that's strange.
Mhm.
And another theory, and I think maybe the most likely theory, is that this could just be one big government psyop to distract us from things like the Epstein list coming out, which came out that same week. And I'm calling it right now, Tara. 2024 is going to be the year of aliens or like interdimensional beings, whatever you want to call them. But I think that it's all Project Bluebeam. It's one big psyop to keep us away from whatever is really going on that they don't want us to see, you know? Or maybe the whole thing is real and police and the media and the government are all, just covering it up. But honestly, like at this point, nothing surprises me. So, what's your conclusion? Like, is it aliens or is it just some teens fighting and the police completely overreacting?
Well, the cop side of me and the conspiracy theory side of me says it all comes down to evidence, right? And that's what's missing here is evidence. And sure, maybe it sounds logical that it was teens fighting, but I don't buy it. And even if it wasn't aliens, I think there's something they're not telling us. And I do want to mention a theory that I read in a online magazine called metro.co.uk. So there's a British UFO expert named Nick Pope, and I guess he used to work for the Ministry of Defense, and his job was investigating reports of UFO sightings. And he looked at all the footage and he said he didn't see any credible evidence of anything UFO or alien related. But he said, quote, the timing is interesting, as all this comes just days before the Intelligence Community Inspector General is due to give a classified members only briefing on UAP to the House Oversight Committee. This is part of a wider U.S. Congress engagement on the subject. Some conspiracy theorists have speculated the Miami alien story was concocted by elements in the U.S. intelligence community as a distraction from this week's briefing scheduled for January 12th, end quote.
That's what I think it's the most likely because they're constantly trying to distract us. The news isn't working anymore. No one's watching the news anymore. They've got to do something else. And like I said, we know that this holographic technology exists.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so they could easily make it look like there's these interdimensional beings to freak people out, cause this big distraction at the same time that like the Epstein stuff is going on. So I don't know. In my opinion, I think that's the most likely.
Yes, but if you want to stick with the conspiracy side of things, while I was looking up articles on this, I found a story in the Spiel Times and it caught my attention because the title was, quote, Getting Too Real. The Simpsons predict the hottest events of 2024. So obviously I had to read that, right? And I think we talked about this once on a podcast
Mhm.
about how like people think the Simpsons show has predicted major events that happened in real life. And I'm pretty sure we mentioned this like on one of our Maui episodes, right?
Oh, yeah, they've predicted everything from Trump becoming president to the Maui fires. Like literally they're always spot on, which is wild.
Yeah, and this show's been on for like 35 years now, which blew my mind because I remember watching The Simpsons growing up. But this article was talking about like, okay, there's already all these strange coincidences that have happened so far in just the first couple weeks of the year. And this whole incident in Miami is being compared to an episode of The Simpsons where I guess like aliens invade Springfield and excuse me, and there's also, like Stephen Hawking, you know, how he was recently mentioned in that, exposing the parts of the Epstein documents last week.
Mhm.
Well, people are drawing a comparison between him and a Simpsons episode from 1990 where Stephen Hawking's character is on the show. And there's this scene where he like innovates his wheelchair so that it can fly. And he flies into this like weird community on an island or cult or whatever. And he saves Lisa, the Simpsons daughter. So that's being compared to this whole Epstein thing.
That's
And then,
wild. That's Epstein Island right there. Lisa's
yeah,
one of the children.
exactly. And then this one is freaky. Like apparently in 2013, there was an episode called Homer Goes to Prep School. And there's this unexpected accident that happens at like, I don't know if it's a power plant or a plantation or something, but it causes a surge of electromagnetic pulses and the town loses power and there's like a full blackout. And so people are saying like if you're looking at modern times, this is comparable to like an EMP burst. And people are saying like, oh, this is going to come true in 2024 because apparently we are supposed to be hit with some kind of massive solar superstorm that could potentially wipe out the power grid. And the article states, quote, according to reports, the sun is about to emit huge bursts of energy that could potentially wipe out the internet for weeks, even months, years, or even worse, forever. There was a recorded solar storm in 1872, but scientists suggest that the upcoming phenomena could be bigger than what happened more than 150 years ago, end quote. And so in this episode where the EMP surge hits, Homer also builds an underground bunker to protect his family to survive. And so that's being compared to like Mark Zuckerberg recently building his new top secret bunker, which we talked about a few weeks ago. So, you know, is he preparing for this solar storm? And like, this is just less than comforting to me because I guess if it's not an EMP attack from China, we're going to have an EMP storm from the sun.
Well, that's terrifying. And yeah, it's
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg is getting all the publicity, but there's like 15 billionaires that have done this. And then last night I just heard that Post Malone is just bought a bunker too. So I'm like, okay. And The Simpsons, like I have watched The Simpsons faithfully since I was a child, like one of my favorite shows. And they're always right. Like it is freaky. There's so many conspiracy theories on how this is possible, but they're always right. So this is like really freaking me out. And speaking of like a solar flare or whatever, I come across this article from Yahoo News and then another one from the New York Post yesterday saying that, oh, an asteroid won't hit Earth in 2024 after all, NASA says. And I'm like, what? An asteroid was supposed to hit Earth? Like, was I the only one completely unaware of this? Have you heard anything about an asteroid hitting Earth?
I did when they were talking about like, you know, at the start of the year, they always do like the dead people's predictions of things that were supposed to come true in the future. And I
Uh-huh.
did hear about it then. And my only thought was like, well, I feel like our government has its hands full with so much other shit that they're facilitating. And I guarantee they're manipulating the weather to begin with. So
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe they just let that one go because their focus is on other means of destruction.
Jeez, crazy. Well, I'm glad it's not going to hit us, supposedly, according to NASA, but like, what the heck? And then, so now we've got rapper Lil Nas exposing the satanic cult in the music industry. So I like randomly came across this on TikTok. It's blowing up. And I'm just going to read like some of the things that he's posting on his official account. So the first video is of him like dancing and it says, quote, me returning to God after the industry tried to make me satanic, end quote. And then the next video says, me knowing I'm about to expose the industry next Friday, which would be this Friday, and realizing I need to watch my back for the next 7 days. And then there was another video of him in the hospital, but he doesn't say why or what happened. And immediately after that, he posts a clip from the movie Eyes Wide Shut of like the people in those cloaks. And it looked kind of like this satanic cult. And he captions it with POV, what Lil Nas sees after exposing the music industry. And then another video says, y'all, after I expose y'all favorite artists next week. And then there's another post where he's like, did you notice how all the celebrities went quiet after I said I'm about to start exposing people? And then the last post that I saw was him like with the cops in this like cop car saying, me staying with the police department 24/7 for the next 5 days before I expose the music industry for what they did to me. So first of all, I'm terrified for this guy. Like, if this is true, he better watch his back. And then the other part of me is like, is this just him trying to promote his new record that's coming out? Or is he really exposing the Illuminati? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think if he if he is exposing the Illuminati, it's only a matter of time before he gets suicided. And I know
True.
that's not a real word, but that's the word I'm using. But I guess he's supposed to be transitioning to gospel music. And one of the other things he posted was, quote, the media stopped supporting me after I started promoting God to the masses. The industry is wicked, which is why I was blackballed from releasing music for the last year and a half, end quote. And then I was looking at this article on Hip Hop DX, and it was really weird. It was talking about how one of his new songs is inspired by the January 6th insurrection. And last month, he set up a website called savenasx.com. And there's a section on the website titled Devil Worshipper, ? And what it says, it's like half of the stuff that he wrote there is in like giant capital letters and then like some in regular letters. So it's very like erratic. But it says, quote, has the devil worshiping pop artist finally been sacrificed to his master? Why is he secluding himself? What is he preparing for? This site will answer all these questions and more. Lots of exclamation marks. So like, Stephanie, doesn't this kind of remind you of last year when like Kanye West lost his shit and was just doing all this erratic, weird stuff?
Yeah, sure does. And then what happened? Kanye went missing, and then he
Right.
comes back and he's like 2 inches taller and like married to some woman that everyone thinks is his handler, and he's not acting like himself. So yeah, watch your back, dude. Like
Kind of
this
like
guy's,
what happened with Britney Spears.
yeah, like every celebrity that starts to like actually speak up. And I mean, I don't follow this guy's music, but my daughter informed me that this guy like did have some pretty satanic stuff in his previous music and performances. And she also went to the Weekend concert where it appeared like they were doing some sort of ritual where everyone came on stage in red cloaks and like the words Satan and obey came across on the big screen. And she said it freaked her out. She was like, I felt like I was in some like devil worshiping performance or something. And apparently Taylor Swift does the same sort of ritual with red cloaks on stage for her song Willow. And there's clips all over of that. And I just think it's weird. Like, it's weird how every massive celebrity, like, once they really go big, they all their music changes, their style, their performance, everything changes into this like satanic imagery. It's happened to Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Sam Smith. And I mean, again, I believe anything is possible after all the weird shit we've seen since we've started this podcast. So I'm going to keep watching this guy's account because I want to see what he has to say. And by Friday, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be curious to see what happens on Friday too. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, getting away from the conspiracy theory stuff and just into like something else weird that happened. So let's talk about this Alaska Airlines incident that happened last week, where the door of a Boeing 737 MAX 9 with 177 passengers was 1,600 feet in the air and the door just blew off. This was last Friday. And it happened in Oregon. The plane took off from Portland. It was bound for Ontario, California. And it was like 20 minutes into the flight. And then the door goes flying off. And fortunately, the plane was able to turn back and make an emergency landing, and nobody was seriously hurt. But apparently, the force from the loss of the door blowing off was so significant that it blew open the cockpit door during the flight. There was obviously like mass panic and chaos on the plane when the mask started dropping down from the ceiling. And I want to read what the Daily Mail reported. So they said, quote, the door's catastrophic failure depressurized the cabin with the force of air rushing in, ripping the shirt off a young boy whose mom was seen holding on to him. Passengers also watched as their phones were sucked out into the night sky. Toys and clothes were also sucked into the atmosphere through the gaping hole. And fortunately, nobody was sitting in the two seats right next to the now missing door. Terrifying footage showed flyers looking out through the giant hole from the missing piece of the plane onto the twinkling lights of Portland below in the eerily quiet cabin, end quote. Like, I was gonna say, like, that author, I know. And so the article also said that like the back of the seat that was directly next to the door was completely ripped off, and so was the headrest of the seat next to it. And the plug door that they're calling the plug door, it's basically the emergency exit door. And so my only guess is like the only reason those seats were empty was because it's more expensive to sit in the exit row because it has more leg room. At least like I used to sit in the exit row all the time, but I swear a couple years ago they made it like a premium seat. And I would have fucking pissed my pants if I had been sitting in that row when the door flew off. Like, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I don't know if this is true or not. I just found out about this morning, so I didn't like have time to add it in, but some woman posted on X that her flight, she was in the exit row, her and her husband, and their flight, it canceled their tickets. And so people were like, "Oh, this is BS. Like she's making it up." And she showed a screenshot, and then other people were commenting, "That's a legitimate screenshot. That is what the website looks like." And their flight like mysteriously was canceled last minute. And so everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's a miracle," because had the flight not been somehow canceled, they probably would have been dead. I mean, they probably would have flown out of the plane. And could you imagine, like, if this didn't happen while they were still like in that takeoff mode, people wouldn't have had their seatbelts on. People could have been
Right.
up in the aisle. I mean, it could have been terrible.
Yeah, and it turns out that this plane had been banned from long distance flights to Hawaii because prior to this flight, the pressure warning light came on in the cabin during 3 previous flights, and 2 of them were just a couple days beforehand on January 3rd and January 4th. And so I was reading this article in the Daily Caller, and they said instead of taking the aircraft out of service, Alaska Airlines decided that they would just restrict the plane from flying over water. So that way it could return very quickly to the airport if the warning light went off. Like, I'm sure that's a very comforting rationalization for the passengers. And I guess they didn't anticipate a fucking door coming off the aircraft mid flight,
That sounds like a huge lawsuit for everyone
right?
on that plane that's suffering like all this traumatic emotional damage after being in a situation like that.
Oh yeah, and I guess like right after this happened, Alaska canceled 170 flights on Sunday and another 60 flights on Monday, and they grounded all of these Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft for safety inspections. And so United Airlines ended up doing the same thing, and they grounded 79 of the same plane and canceled 230 flights on Sunday. And here's the like really creepy part, that particular plane that had the door blown off, it had only been in service for 3 months. That plane just went into service in October of 23. And from what I understand, like the planes still aren't back in service because the FAA and Boeing have to come to some kind of approved inspection criteria before the checks can be completed and the planes can fly again. And then as a side note, like the missing door was found by a Portland school teacher in his backyard on Sunday. And like one passenger's cell phone was found in the bushes by a guy who was out on a walk and he thought a jogger had dropped it because the phone was totally intact. There weren't even any scratches on it, but the charging cord was still attached. It was still in airplane mode. And then when the guy, I guess it didn't have a passcode because when the guy opened the phone, he could see the passenger ticket on the screen.
That was like the first thing that crossed my mind because I was like, could you imagine if that would have hit someone, they'd be dead instantly. Like
Oh
even the
yeah.
phone at that, 16,000 feet, that would kill someone. Like thankfully no one was harmed, but good God, I don't ever want to get on an airplane after this story.
Yeah, especially when they know like there's a problem with the aircraft and you know that this is not the only aircraft that they know they have issues with.
Right.
And there it's just like a game, we're just going to keep flying until something happens. And like you said, if this had happened when they were above whatever their height is for them to take off seat belts and roam around the plane, this could have been a whole different story.
Hmm.
But speaking of flying, in quotes, on a last note of crazy, we have to talk about Deborah Redden, who is being called Superman because he literally seemed to fly through the air as he catapulted himself across a courtroom and over the judge's desk during a hearing last Wednesday in Clark County, Las Vegas. So I guess he was unhappy because the judge denied him probation after he pled guilty to attempted battery with bodily harm. So I guess he decided to reenact the same crime in the courtroom. So after he flew over the desk, he like straight up tackled the judge. And in the video, you can see he slams her into the wall. An American flag comes tumbling down on her as they both go to the ground behind the desk. And then you see like cops jumping over there. And I guess he like struck her on the head, pulled out some of her hair. this full-on brawl ensued between Superman and the court officials, and like 3 people were injured, including a marshal, a corrections officer, and a law clerk. And then after the attack, he told the officers that the judge was evil and she had it out for him. And then later on, he stated that he had just had a bad day. But I'm going to give it to the judge because this was on Friday. He came back to court on Monday to be sentenced for the attack, and she demanded that he be brought back to her courtroom so that she could continue sentencing him for the crime that he was there for on Friday. And she did not change her ruling. And apparently, this was not the first time she had had a run-in with him, because she gave him probation last year in January when he was charged with the home invasion from 2021. So I will say, like, at least some judges are still making an effort to sentence criminals.
Wow, good for her. Like, to not take it out on him after he attacks her like that, that's crazy. And like, I hate to joke about it, but that video, oh my gosh, every time I see it, I start laughing of him flying through the air because I'm like, it looks like he's in the Olympics and he's, going over that, whatever that's called.
There was one video that I probably watched it 5 times. It shows, what he did, and then they play it in slow motion, and you can hear like the whoa, as you just watch the whole thing happen in slow motion, and then they play like the real time again. And yeah, it's not funny, but it's funny.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to post the video of him back in court like the second time because it's even funnier. They roll him into court like he's fucking Hannibal Lecter. They have like literally a thing over his face,
Mhm.
and then on his hands they had these like orange foam blocks, and he kept trying to scratch his face, like to itch his face, but he has these like foam blocks on and he can't. And I mean, I'm telling you, like every time I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to watch that video because it just makes me start dying laughing. And I know it's not nice to laugh at that, but it was hilarious. And I'm glad the judge is okay. And I mean, now she's TikTok famous. So I mean, at least she has that going for her. Um, and then I have one more kind of like an intro to a story. Maybe we'll do another episode on this, but I had to throw it in there because I saw this last night and I was like, whoa. It's a pretty big deal, and the mainstream media doesn't seem to be covering it at all so far. So this is from Fox 26 in Houston, and the article says, quote, "An alarming situation has unfolded in Jackson, Mississippi, where 215 bodies were discovered buried in unmarked graves behind a state jail. Families of the deceased were left in the dark until last month. Some grave sites were only identified by a number and a metal rod, raising concerns about the lack of transparency and respect in handling the deceased. The families of the deceased attorneys are calling for a thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding these unmarked graves," end quote. So 215 bodies show up and there's like no media coverage. I think that's pretty crazy. I am curious. I want to know what happened to these people. And my God, Tara, we aren't even a full 2 weeks into 2024. And all of this shit has happened so far. So, like, maybe we need to get a bunker after all. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that would actually be a good idea. Didn't we talk about some fairly affordable ones on an episode
Yeah,
we
South
did a
Dakota, I
couple?
think it
Yeah.
was. I mean, we could hang out there. We could still do our podcast. They have Wi-Fi and everything. So I don't know. The way 2024 is shaping up, maybe we need to consider that. But that's what we have so far. I'm sure more is coming, unfortunately. We'll keep everyone posted. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.